This is a special board meeting for the Village of Indian Head Park. Today's date is Thursday, November 7, 2013. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Andrews.
Present.
Trustee Schnapper.
Here.
Trustee Wall. Here. Trustee Bailey.
Here.
Trustee Hinshaw.
Here.
Trustee O'Lucker. Here. Trustee Wittenberg.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Let's please rise, and I would ask that all veterans present please lead us in the pledge of allegiance. As I alluded to the pledge, as we know, Monday, November 11th is Veterans Day. I want to extend our thanks and appreciation to all veterans everywhere for their service to our country, and especially to those in our village and any of those who are present tonight. I would ask that in their honor that you fly the flag on Monday, thank a veteran if you know one, or do something kind to a fellow citizen. This is a special board meeting to discuss our street maintenance, infrastructure, capital improvements plan in order to help prioritize the projects, determine the amount we wish to spend, and how to pay for it. Before we begin, I have a couple of things I'd like to call to your attention. First, let me ask you to please silence all cell phones. Second, please be aware that this meeting is being officially videotaped by the village and may be video or audio taped by others present. I'm allocating 1.5 hours for this meeting. We'll see how we do. Accordingly, I ask that when you are recognized, please state your name and address clearly for the record, and limit your comments and questions to no more than 2 minutes, the first time around at least, until everyone has had an opportunity to provide their input. Then, time permitting, you are welcome to provide further input. I would ask that you please respect each other and accept other viewpoints, even though you may disagree. We are a village, and ultimately, we all have to work together. The village board and I want to do what is best for the village in accordance with what the residents want. We have information to present and look forward to your input concerning tonight's topics regarding streets, infrastructure, and capital improvements. This is a special meeting for one purpose only. If you have questions or comments about any matter unrelated to tonight's topic, I would ask that you hold that thought. Please come to our regular village board meeting next Thursday, November 14th. We will begin with a presentation by Village Administrator Frank Alonso, and then go into the dialogue with the residents. This is your opportunity to tell us what you think based on the presentation. I would like to recognize Public Works Superintendent Ed Santon, Village Engineer Dave Vanderveld, Treasurer Steve Busa, and Finance Director Dave Brink, who are here with us tonight to help with the discussion. We'll begin with a presentation by our Village Administrator, Frank Alonso.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go through the handout that you all should have in front of you, and if you don't, there's plenty up here to come up and grab one. I'm going to go through this PowerPoint type presentation. This was put together by myself, Superintendent of Public Works at Stanton. We had a little assistance from David Brink, Steve Busa helped with the finances, and trustees Bailey and Wittenberg from Public Works, who also had some input as we put this together as a group. If you go to the page 2, and those of you that remember, or those of you that had attended the September board meeting, we began at that point to collect the data on our infrastructure and on our streets. We put together at that time some short-term, long-term needs, and with the caveat that we were going to take these again, and so here we are today to analyze, bring it down, and see what we need to do at this point in time. At that September meeting, we analyzed the data that was presented, talked about it, and had a little discussion. Now we have to move on to see what are we going to do, how are we going to pay for it, what funding is available, what alternate funding, if there is, available, and that will be our discussion for tonight. The next page starts the street discussion. Back again in September, for those of you who remember, we listed streets that needed to be done today. We kind of called it like a triage, an urgent need of repair. These 9 streets are what we evaluated as the ones that need help now, that need it today. They're listed there, you can see, without me reading them off. And a cost for those streets is about $1,300,000. Now remember, we have, with Ed Santon and our village engineer, come up with a best, I guess, estimate at this point. There has been no engineering done, and what I mean by that, core samples, to see exactly what every street needs. But as from past experiences that Ed Santon had and our engineer had, we come up with a good guess to see what it would cost us to get this done. Of course, one of the pros for just doing 9 streets is that it's the least amount of capital. It's the cheapest because we're only going to do 9 streets. Second, it addresses an immediate need. However, on the con side, it does not benefit the whole village, and you may even have a lower voter approval because you're only targeting one little area of the community. Doing any crack filling on the streets that we're talking here would not help because they are in pretty bad shape. And it is not a long-term for the rest of the streets of the village. As we move to the next scenario, we added a few more streets that are in need of repair. To the scenario 1, we added 8 more streets. This again is an estimated cost now of $1,800,000. Mind you, it looks like, okay, it was $1,300,000 to do 9, now we're only adding another $500,000 to do maybe 8. Well, that's because, first off, what do these streets need is our best guess estimate, and secondly, the more you do, the cheaper it will be. So if you added another 8 streets, the price is going to come down, so it's an estimated about another $500,000. Again, it's a lower, what is a pro? Instead of doing all the streets, yes, it's a lower amount of capital than our last scenario. Again, it addresses immediate issues, and again, it does not benefit the whole village. There'd be less curb repairs done because you're doing less streets. Because as we go and do the streets, we also add curb work that need to be done to those streets that are going to be repaired. That's not saying that every mile of curb will be repaired, but each street will be evaluated and what curb work needs to be done at that time. And again, it is not a long-term plan for all the streets. Now, our next 3 pages, I believe it's 3 pages, and one of the pages, 6, was replaced with an amended page. Yeah, it's the blue sheet, you should have this. There were 5 streets that had the repair wrong. Those streets were listed as crack fill when they should have been mill and overlay. The price is the same, but if you can see, with a crack fill for $63,000 would be kind of a little bit outrageous. So it should have, those were corrected, so you should have that corrected with you. And you can go through these and you will see, this is the scenario 3, this is the all-street plan. This would be doing something to just about every street in town. All streets would be repaired or replaced. More curb work would be done as needed. And if we did go out for a referendum, we go out for a bond, a street bond, we add to our taxes, it would be removed from the tax bill once it was paid off. Majority of the residents, if not all the residents, would be impacted. higher cost is to be a con, but not really, because you do more, you're gonna get the cheaper price. If we only went back to scenario one and did just those 9 streets, as you can see, what happens in 2 to 3 years when we have to move to those streets in scenario 2. We would have to figure out how to pay for it. We don't know in 2 years what the cost is gonna be, what the interest rate's gonna be, what material cost is gonna be. But I think we all can pretty safely say that as the years go on, things go up. So yes, this may look like the highest cost, which it is, but in long term, it is not. What we would try to do then as a village, if we did, by doing all the streets, would also give us an opportunity to start thinking of an annual street maintenance program, a depreciation value. I mean, we all know the village only has so much money coming in, and we have the rest of the bills and the rest of the village to run. It's not a lot of magic, but perhaps in our next, as we move along with budgets, I don't know if this is possible, but maybe we can start the depreciation value, start adding some money for maybe the next 15 to 20 years from now when we have to do streets again. Maybe we'll have some money there. Probably not all, but maybe we won't have to go out for a bigger bond. But it's something that we need to start thinking about. I'm not saying today that it's possible or not, or is possible, but it's by starting where we're at today. Obviously, we have this situation that we need to deal with. We don't have the money at this time to do it. So if we do go for a bond issue, we do get it done, and as we start moving ahead, we start thinking, well, if we come up with a good maintenance program, a depreciation value, maybe we can prolong the streets more than 15 years, 20 years. I think the engineer could probably maybe give us an estimate of how long we can keep a street going. But I think by doing a good program, we will be able to prolong the life of the streets. But we gotta start with doing the streets first, because some of them are really beginning to crumble. And again, I think if we're just gonna look to do a scenario 1 issue, probably not gonna go over real big with the rest of the residents. So funding, our next page 9, funding for our streets, some options. Something I already talked about, doing a street bond and picking a scenario. There we have some figures. If we did option 1, if we did option 2, if we did option 3, there's a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year. You can see the total cost of interest on each one of these options. There's a guess of an interest rate there. Maybe next year they'll change. We don't know. That's the unknown. Interest, we know as we see how the federal government's going and how we see stimulus will stop or continue, what will happen to interest rates, we don't know. But it is a good, best guess. I think, if it was decided to go ahead with a bond, maybe the best thing we do is go in the middle, 15 years. You don't have that pressure of a higher payment on the tax for 10 years. But if you go out 20 years, for example, if you were to take option 3 to $2,500,000, you can see 20 years of total interest costs on these numbers, these interest rates would be $1,350,000 just about, compared to going out 15 years, would be $870,000. So big difference. The next page is the financial impact on the residents, on their tax bill. You can see there for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Again, the 3 options, what the yearly cost would be based on an EAV of $76,250 or $250,000 home value. So what we see here is evaluate the infrastructure budgeting and accrual of monies to cover partial infrastructure needs for the future, so we don't have the same issue in the future. That's what I talked about earlier. When perhaps, if it's agreed, if this does go through, I don't know, and we get the streets done, we can start thinking of the future, see if we can, again, there's only so much money comes in, the economy gets better, things happen, we can start working, maybe we can start putting aside depreciation value in that budget, so that when we come again for the next 15 to 20 years, as I have mentioned, we're not out there 20 years from now, I don't know what will it cost to do streets, 5 million, 6, I have no idea. That was like that time frame out there. But I think we could, at the same time, in our budget, plan a good maintenance program where we could get more life out of these streets. I know Ed would love to purchase some road software, which would help us with the ongoing maintenance and planning, where you put the information in every year, it would give us information back, what you should do to certain roads to keep them going, to keep them up, to prolong their life. It's a cheap investment, but it's something that, you know, the budget years are budget's coming up now. And then, just to repeat, we need to invest in crack filling and street maintenance plan each year in public works, which I think I've already talked about. We can't just fix the streets and then say, okay, we're done, we got the bond, we're gonna fix all the streets, it'll be over with, and then 15 years from now, oh, you know, we're back where we were. And even back in 1997 or 96, when they did the streets, they had to do a road bond to do the streets. Now, we're also, I know this meeting is mainly a lot to do with how to fund the streets. We still, back in September, we talked about other infrastructure, water, on the water side. And we had a list of short-term, long-term. At that time, well, we broke it down to 7 needs that would need to be done today, in the very near future, that are the important ones. Some that we saw on previous, back in September, like we had in Capitol, where we would begin to look at our sewer system by using cameras. Well, that's something that we will have to budget for. That's not capital improvement. So we moved some things around, but we came up right now for today's conversation, you know, 7 items on the other infrastructure side. One that would be top would be the Cascade Drive water main, which is approximately 900 feet. It is one that is one of the bad ones that would need to be done. And I think if we're going to do our streets, we would want to at least care for that water main. You see another water main there, Shavona. We have some water meter vault corrosion equipment issue. Stormwater sewer outfall to Flag Creek, that's where a lot of, that could explain that. That's where most of our runoff goes, I believe. Village Hall needs some HVAC work, emergency generator for the pump house, and a water meter replacement in the village. Our water meters, the way it's explained to me, the top that reads the meter are going to be no longer parts available. They're not going to be repaired. A new system would give us a more accurate reading, maybe bring us in more, 18 to 20,000 more a year, I think. We said that, yes. You know, we're more accurate. But not only that, the fact that the water meters are getting old and are going to be unable to be repaired and unable to be purchased. So right now, for funding, with the fund balance in the water fund now, we have $300,000 that we can use today for one of these projects. How to fund it again, or to go ahead with the other projects, it took us 3 years to get to $300,000 and where we're at today with our water rates. Maybe in 3 years we do another one if we stick with the same rate. And in 3 years, another one. Of course, we can raise the water charges. We can add a sewer charge. and maybe perhaps we can look at some other fundraisers as we go. So with all that being said, now it's time to say, well, what do we want to prioritize? What do we want to do? Do we want to go out and do our streets? Do we want to do them all? Do we want to do none? Do we want to sit back and see if someday we can save enough money for 10 years from now or 15 years from now to do it? Obviously, I don't think that's the answer, but it is something we can start looking forward in the future when we start planning our budget and seeing where we can take some, we're fairly lean, and, I'm sure some people give an argument that maybe there's some more we can do, but, only so much comes in. But it's not ignored now that we know we need to do something for the future. If we were to do a referendum, it would have to be decided at a December board meeting, because the deadline to notify the county is December 31st, I believe, 30th. So it would have to be decided at no later than the December board meeting if we were to put a referendum on the ballot for a street bond, or whichever choice, to get the work done. Thanks. I hope I explained it enough. Go back to the mayor.
Just, Frank, can I ask you a couple of quick questions? Just, there might be, I want to clarify for my own mind, and maybe it'll help the people, but on page 9, we talk about funding for our street options. So I understand this correctly, and it's laid out nicely, appreciate it. But for example, the options count, the $2,500,000, look at the line labeled 10-year on the left, the 296,928, that would be the debt payment, so that's the impact on the budget at that level, assuming the 3.2%.
That would be what we did.
And the line right below it, the interest cost of $469,182 would be the total amount of interest paid on the $2.5 million at 3.2% over the 10 years. Okay. And then on page 11, the dollar figures there is the additional amount of property tax that would be levied against resident based on a $250,000 market value home.
Right, Steve, you can help us put this together.
Yes, that is correct.
Just so I'm clear, the EAD is the number you arrive at after you factor in the multiplier on the assessed value, correct?
That is correct.
Mayor, can you speak up a little bit? It's hard to hear you back here with all these people and
Sorry,
papers.
I think I'm fighting a cold, but I'll.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the answer is the DAV does factor, it has already factored in the state multiplier, which fluctuates from year to year. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong here, the county assesses residential property on a 10% basis from market value, and then because the rest of the state is assessing it at a higher level, the state determines a multiplier, which is where it comes from, that is applied in Cook County to the assessed valuation to come up with the EAV, equalized assessed valuation, and that's the genesis of the term. But in any event, based on the assumptions here, a $250,000 market value home that translates to an EAV that includes the multiplier, the $2.5 million project on a 10-year plan would add $169 to your tax bill.
That is
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Myself and everybody that helped.
We still can't hear you.
I will do my best. It's actually now gonna be your turn. trustees Daley and Wittenberg agreed that after Frank did his presentation, that we would start with input and comments from the audience, so we'll do that. Again, I will try to speak up, I will ask all of you to do the same thing. When I recognize you, I'd appreciate it if you would please say your name and your address clearly and loudly for the record. And we've got a good crowd here, so I would ask you to try to keep to the 2 minutes. I mean, there's no buzzer gonna go off or bell or whistle, but let's try to give everybody a first chance before we get into second and third chance. Okay, folks? So, questions or comments? Back there.
Hi, John Corcoran. Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Go ahead.
on the left side, then we'll come to the middle.
It's 6417 Apache Drive, which is scenario 2, just so everybody knows where my allegiances lie. Questions just about the useful life then of the streets when they are repaired. I think that's a critical assumption. And specifically, the option 3 streets that appear some will just be kind of crack filling and maintenance. So if we could get that information, I think that's really important.
I think Ed or you guys like to answer that. Like, for example, 72nd Street, which is just gonna need crack fill or maybe some minor repairs. Under a maintenance program, how long do those streets go? Are they good for another 10, 15 years?
Sure. Yeah, pardon me, my name's Dave Vanderbilt. I've been the village engineer for some time now. The crack filling, pothole repair, general maintenance will buy you anywhere from 5 to 10 years if you keep it up. Actually, depends on what you like to look at. I mean, you could have a street with a lot of patches in it, and it'll last a long time. The basic program, or the scenario 1 and 2, where we're gonna really get on the streets, like Frank said, we're not going to figure out exactly what we're gonna do until we put some engineering theories to test, cores, etc. But what we'd like to do is take it right down to the stone that was used for base and put in a new street, all asphalt. Depending on the thickness, that'll be determined as we go. The streets we do that way will probably last 20 to 30 years with proper maintenance, if not longer. They're very low volume roadways. The IDOT standards that we design to are designed for a 20-year service life of the street. But that's IDOT. You realize their streets carry a lot more traffic than what's in front of your house or in Indian Head Park for the most part. So, like I said, 20 years is a design standard. You can look for 30 plus with the program that we are going to try and implement.
But that will include an ongoing maintenance investment as well.
Correct.
Thank you. The other gentleman here in the back in the middle.
Is it me?
Yep.
Yes.
Tom Martorano, live in Ashbrook. My question is,
Could you
how
say your
close-
address, please?
11060 Ashbrook Lane.
Thank you.
How close do you think your estimate is? I mean, if you didn't do the engineering yet, and you don't know the condition of sewer or water, how close do you think that 2.5 million is?
I think, go ahead, Dave, but we talked, and Dave, and they took what was done the last time, we added 20% to it, and the engineer felt Mike, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but we're pretty close.
No, that's right, Frank. The conservative we put together is pretty conservative. In other words, we've got a little room where we can go either way as far as doing more streets with the smaller program, but I wouldn't want to say we will be able to do that.
I was concerned about sewer and water. I mean, if you're gonna redo a street and the sewer main's in bad condition, you don't know what kind of costs you're gonna incur on the sewer. I just wondered if there was a condition.
Is that the
report done.
storm sewer you're talking about?
Yeah, storm sewer, inlet-based drainage, or corner drainage.
The drainage, if it's a closed system, in other words, not ditches, but in pipe, if that system is less than 50 years old, it's probably in fine shape, except for spot repairs, which we will look at. and that should not impact the budgets that we develop.
Okay. And is there any grant money or anything, if you look at alternative financing besides just basing a bond issue? Is there any grant money where you're planning on doing main streets? Is there any way to switch, look for grants for the main streets, TIF district,